Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, hundreds protest in Kenya over plans to build an Ebola quarantine centre for US citizens in the town of Nanyuki. Also, with over 1,000 suspected cases and almost 300 suspected deaths from the viral outbreak, there's still been some signs of progress in supplying rural Congolese health centres. Millions are invested in speeding up research into finding a vaccine for the rare strain. And Ethiopia's leaders all but guaranteed a landslide victory in Monday's elections amidst accusations of repression of opposition figures. We hear from our correspondent in the country. But first, we head to central Kenya, where dozens of people marched in protest against plans to build an Ebola quarantine facility for US nationals and a military base in the town of Nanyuki. Now, the High Court suspended the deal between Washington and Nairobi over the weekend, but locals say that they still feel betrayed and scared of what's to come.
Early Monday morning, in front of Laikipia Air Base, hundreds of people in this small town in central Kenya come to express their anger. Under the watchful eyes of a few soldiers on duty, Nanyuki residents protest a U.S. plan to use the base as a quarantine center for American Ebola patients.
This quarantine is actually threatening the life of the people of Laikipia County as a whole and Kenyans.
We have a primary school, and it's so bad that even the president himself, the man who called himself the president of the Republic of Kenya, didn't even consider these small kids.
Kenyan authorities are facing intense criticism because they did not reveal the construction of this center. Discussions between Washington and Nairobi were only mentioned in a statement from the U.S. Secretary of State published Friday, one that sheds light on Marco Rubio's promise not to repatriate Americans infected with the virus.
We cannot and will not allow any cases of Ebola to enter the United States.
This constitutional watchdog, the Katiba Institute, challenged the establishment of the U.S. Ebola Center, and Kenya's High Court suspended the site. The court also temporarily banned entry into the country for people exposed to or infected by Ebola. The next hearing is expected to take place on Tuesday. Kenya's government is reportedly pushing for the center to be open to nationalities other than Americans.
Why do Americans think that their lives are so much important than the lives of Kenyans, so that they establish a facility in Kenya that is meant for only Americans?
The current Ebola outbreak has claimed nearly 250 lives and is concentrated in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Around 10 cases have also been confirmed in Kenya's neighbor, Uganda, and their border closed. Kenya has never experienced an Ebola outbreak, but has been designated as a high-risk area by the WHO. The U.S. pledged $13.5 million in aid to fund Kenya's Ebola response.
Well, the race continues to find a vaccine for the Buju strain of Ebola behind the current outbreak. The Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations says that it will invest over $60 million to ramp up the race to develop immunizing shots. The virus is spread through contact with bodily fluids, and it's DR Congo's 17th outbreak since 1976. I'm joined now by Dr. Ibrahima Sosay-Fall, who is the former WHO Assistant Director General for Emergency Response, and he led teams during the 2019 Congolese Ebola outbreak. Dr. Sosay-Fall, thank you so much for making the time to speak to me. Earlier, you said that you think that every outbreak is different. We've talked about the rareness of the current strain, but what else is unique about the spread and response this time around, in your experience?
Thank you so much. Every outbreak is unique. I'm talking about, Ituri and Kivu region in Congo. We know that the political situation is very specific with the level of insecurity. The social context also is very particular, with very low access to basic services in terms of water, sanitation, health facilities, and access to the remote population is very difficult. So making sure that we take into account this context. And what is unique also is the rapid spread of the outbreak from the onset. So making sure that the response is very decentralized, working closely with communities will be important.
Bearing in mind that communities at the centre of managing an outbreak that currently doesn't have a vaccine, It's the 17th time this has happened in DR Congo. Does that suggest perhaps that there have been missed opportunities to build better links with communities so that they're better primed to respond quickly when outbreaks like this happen?
Unfortunately, we always see this cycle of panic and neglect. When the outbreak happens, everybody will invest, whatever resources will be invested. But at the end of the outbreak, we almost go back to scratch. And this is not the way to prepare and to prevent outbreak. We need to make sure that when the outbreak finishes, we continue investing to strengthen the health system, because if you see the delay in detecting the outbreak and the response, really, we have missed opportunity to build back better in Ituri and North Kivu when the 10th outbreak happened.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the difficulties created by the conflict that is still DR Congo is still struggling with. A couple of weeks ago, I spoke to the Congolese Minister of Communications and Media, and he said that he hadn't at that time spoken to M23 rebels who have a lot of control around the areas at the heart of the outbreak. Do you think that's important for Congolese authorities to do, to directly reach out to militants who have control over cities at the heart of this Congolese outbreak?
Access negotiation with arms group is critical and should be a key pillar of the outbreak response. This is what we did in 2019 to be able to access the most difficult areas. And there are many partners, including NGOs, who can facilitate discussion with armed group, and I'm sure with the Red Cross and others I don't need to name, this can happen. And we need to make sure that in every area where you have intervention teams, this connection and negotiation with the armed group to facilitate access, but closely also working with the local communities is guaranteed. Otherwise, it will be very, very difficult to control the outbreak.
Dr. Ibrahima Sosé Fall, thank you so much for making the time to speak to me and break down some of the work that needs to be done to address the outbreak of Ebola in DR Congo. Now, staying in the country, fighters from the ADF group have, for the first time in 3 years, attacked the city of Beni. And Livingston has more.
In the early hours of Sunday morning, ADF fighters killed at least 16 people in the city of Beni, according to the Congolese government. Details about the attack are still hazy, but the government said that 15 civilians and 1 soldier were killed in what it called a criminal incursion. This is a significant development. The ADF, which is allied to the Islamic State, used to attack Beni regularly, but a joint Congolese and Ugandan military operation mostly succeeded in driving the militants from urban areas. This weekend's attack is the first time the ADF has made an incursion into Beni in over 3 years. Locals are distraught.
Members of my family were killed. I managed to escape. We're asking the government for help. We don't understand why they killed us, massacred us, just like that.
We want the commanders in charge of operations to be replaced, including those in the intelligence services, because the attack took place at 10 p.m., yet no one came to help us. We were killed just like that.
There's been a resurgence in ADF attacks across the provinces of North Kivu and Ituri this year. Experts say that the ADF often attack civilians in revenge for military operations targeting the group. These attacks are happening in areas where Ebola is now also circulating, underlying the extreme insecurity that health responders are facing.
Well, an international court in The Hague has rejected Kigali's claim for Britain to pay more than $135 million still owed from a scrapped deal for Rwanda to take in UK deportees. The scheme was shelved in 2024 after a change in government at Downing Street. And in Nigeria, teachers rallied for an open-ended strike from Monday in protest over the number of school abductions that have hit communities in the southwestern state of Oyo. Sam Olokoya with more.
Schools in Oyo State, southwest Nigeria, have shut down as teachers begin an indefinite strike over the captivity of 39 children and 7 teachers abducted from 3 schools in the state 2 weeks ago. There were also street protests in the state and neighboring Ogun State as teachers, parents, and civil society groups called for the immediate rescue of the abducted children and teachers. Teachers in more states may join the strike, while the protest may spread to more states, especially in the southwest. Mass abductions of school children have mainly happened in northern Nigeria. This incident has shocked the nation as it marks a shift from the north to the relatively safer south, where such incidents are rare. The nature of the incident is also concerning, with a teacher and another person shot dead during the attack on the schools. The government have executed one of the teachers in captivity, with a warning to execute more captives if any attempt is made to rescue them. In the wake of the incident, the Nigerian government is under pressure to stop the jihadists and other armed groups behind the mass abductions of school children in the north from infiltrating the south. Attacks on schools in the south would potentially cause widespread anger in a region where schooling used to be safe.
And Washington plans on slashing the number of embassies and consulates across Africa capable of processing visas to enter the US. There are currently 50 sites dealing with such applications, but that's set to drop to just 20 over June as the US administration tries to make immigration to its territory more difficult. And Ethiopians voted on Monday in polls that few expect to hold many surprises. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and his Prosperity Party are expected to win by a landslide. Tom Canetti was in Addis for us.
More than 50 million Ethiopians have registered to vote, but everyone is expecting the same result. In 2021, in the last elections, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and the ruling Prosperity Party won with 96% of the vote, and we're expecting a similar outcome with these elections. There were 47 opposition parties, but I spoke to the leader of one of them who told me that she was afraid of being assassinated in the lead-up to these elections. And 70% of Ethiopia is currently affected by armed conflict, meaning large parts of certain regions will not be able to participate in the election. For example, in the Amhara region, where there is a war between the Fano militia and the Ethiopian forces. My sources there in the capital of Amhara, the Bahir Dar, told me that that militia warned residents not to leave their house on the election day. In the Oromia region, there are also armed clashes with the OLA, the Oromo Liberation Army, who have imposed a roadblock for 7 days and also warned residents there not to participate in these elections. Finally, in the Tigray region, where the war took place between 2020 and 2022 that killed more than 600,000 people, the election board confirmed last week that the entire Tigray region will be excluded from this vote. So the real stakes today are not whether Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed can win these elections, but rather can he control the security situation in a more and more fractured Ethiopia.
Tom there for us in the Ethiopian capital. That is all we have time for Eye on Africa now, though. Thanks very much for joining us, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.